Damon Wayans has been making his rounds from city to city performing stand-up comedy. This weekend, he'll be performing at Caroline's in New York, and in order to promote those shows, he appeared on Hot 97's Ebro in the Morning. During the interview, Damon was asked about his thoughts on Dave Chappelle's most recent comedy specials. Damon would first say he loved Chappelle and called him the comedian of this generation. However, when it came to the frequency of the specials, he would say, "You gotta ask yourself as an artist, is it special or are they just taking advantage of me because I'm special?" Today we have our comedy hype analysts, Pierre, Yamanika Saunders, as well as Dan and Green, calling in to give their thoughts and reactions. But first, let's take a look at this clip.
You know, I listen, I love Chappelle, so I'm not gonna really speak on it, but for him to, you know, right now can't nobody touch him because he's the one that's doing it and they're filming everything he do right now and putting it out as a special. The thing is, you got to ask yourself as an artist, is it special? Or are they taking advantage of me because I'm special? Like I said, I haven't watched the new, the speech. You know, if you're going to put a speech up as a, you got, don't blur the lines. Is this a special or this a speech? Because, and right now, I think they're blurring the lines. There is no doubt that Dave Chappelle is the comedian of our generation. I say that. He's braver than I am right now. I would say he's braver than I've ever been because, you know, in Living Color, y'all come see me and then y'all, you know, let the audience decide, you know, what greatness is.
Now, I want to go ahead and dive into everyone's reaction. And Pierre, I want to start with you. What's your reaction to that? You know, do you agree with Damon that, you know, what we're seeing from Dave is more like speeches instead of specials? What are your thoughts, Pierre?
Well, first of all, I want to say, and I've said this countless times in the past, Damon Wayans is in my top 7 to 5 greatest comedians of all time, to me. I mean, I know comedy and I know how I know fake comedy and real comedy. He's one of the best that's ever done it. So I'm gonna start with that. He's definitely one of my favorites. I think Chappelle now is becoming a victim of his own fame. Not his fault, but people are just wanting to gravitate to anything he's talking about. So like this thing I saw it about acceptance speech, you know, it's just them trying to take advantage of him right now. Anything he does, you know, that they want to put out as a special or put him out on Netflix or somewhere on a bigger platform, a big platform. I don't blame Chappelle. Chappelle just doing his thing. You know, if you want to film it, you want to film it. Yes, if you put so many out, do they become special anymore? Does something like this become a special? That's not a special. And I think Dave knows that's not a special. He didn't work on that material. He just went back and talked about his life and it happened to be, you know, interesting. People are very enamored with him right now. And I think that, yes, if you put in so many things out, you know, some of them aren't going to be as special as they are. It takes a bit to write a special. It really does take some time to get in there, right? Any person putting a special out every year is not putting out a real special. And like you said, you know, they say, you know, nothing comes close to the closer. Well, I disagree. There's a special coming out called Half Truths, you know, that I'm putting out. Okay, and check that out versus the closure. Okay, I talk about some stuff, so there you go.
Look, competition for him. All right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, damn that.
Yamanika, I want to come to you next. What are your reactions and thoughts on it? You know, do you agree with Damon that what we're seeing from Dave over the past couple of years is more like speeches as opposed to specials?
I mean, I'm certainly not here to go against Damon Wayans. He is one of my favorite comedians. I don't think we saw him enough, to be honest with you. And I think because he was in a show that was, you know, more about him doing improvisation or character work versus people seeing him as a legitimate stand-up comedian. He is incredible. I think when he makes references to people wanting to see him do Handyman and these different characters that were on in Living Color, it's because that's what he was known for. You know, Chappelle is not known for doing these sort of characters. He's known for being the guy you go to hear about social commentary that's happening in the world. That's the space and the lane that he carved out for himself. And because he has carved that type of a lane where we go to him to get information about the world that's happening around us, he is going to be more popular and more relevant than most comics because he talks about that. And it's not such a personalized, I'm only talking about my family or I'm only doing character work. He's talking about the world. So, I mean, they both have a point. I have had the opportunity to, you know, I'm sure as we all have had a conversation with Chappelle. And
right.
I mean, yeah, you know, listen, the man has a level of cockiness. He's also been given it. I mean, when you keep telling somebody they're the GOAT and everybody keeps referencing them, what do you want them to, like, is he not supposed to lean into that? I know I would.
Right.
So lean into that and let him, you know, and let him be the one that says, yeah, who can come out with a more relevant, popping special than I can? It's a lot of things that have to come together for people to knock him off that throne. Not only do you have to have something that's relevant and funny, but also people have to, a large amount of people have to agree. I know a bunch of comics who I think are just as funny as Chappelle. Are they as popular as him? They are not. That's why he's the GOAT.
Right. Now, Pierre, I am going to come to you just a little bit later because I was seeing your reactions and I want to get your thoughts. But we have a special guest, Dan and Green. Thank you so much. Or D Green, as Pierre called you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's so good to have you.
It's good to be here with you guys. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Now, I want to ask that same question to you. You know, after seeing the clip, what's your reaction to, you know, do you agree with Damon that what we're seeing from Dave is more like speeches as opposed to specials?
I agree. I agree and disagree. One, I know Damon. I actually used to box Pierre and us. Remember, we used to box at a gym together down in LA. So I got to know Damon, know Keenan very well. I don't look at it like that because the style of comedy that Dave is doing now reminds me of George Carlin. And if you remember George Carlin, he was a guy that was commentary. He talked a lot, but he made it funny, but he also made you think. And I think what's happening now is that one, Netflix is making sure they recoup that 60 million they gave. You know what I mean? They're gonna make sure that they get that money back any way possible if they gotta put out a clip every day. Now we talk about social media all the time that for us to be popular, we have to post a lot. So they're obviously putting out a lot of stuff that he's doing to keep him relevant and to keep Netflix relevant. In terms of his comedy, I look at it like this. Dave did something that, like Damon said earlier, you know, 9 months ago, he saved comedy. He released the slaves, you know, because he went out there and said something. I think now what's happening in terms of what I heard from Damon is kind of like a little bit like, okay, you're saying you're the greatest, but we're good too. And I don't have a problem with that. I think it's like in boxing or anything you do. You know, you got one guy who says I'm the best and you have to go get him. And I think what Dave is doing is opening up challenges to us as comics to not just be so lazy with our comedy and to really express more that's going out, you know, right now, especially what's happening in the world.
Absolutely. Now, Pierre, I want to give you the chance to respond, of course, but I want to go ahead and throw this next question to you as well. You know, like Danny said, or D Green said, you know, we're seeing Netflix push out a lot of content when it comes to Dave Chappelle. Do you think, you know, all this release of content or material from Dave is hurting him, you know, hurting his career? Or do you think it's just feeding the appetite of his fans and people who have wanted him for all that time that he wasn't around?
True. Like any comic knows, you cannot put out a hilarious stand-up special year after year. It takes work. It takes a lot of finessing to that. Now you can get up on stage and talk, you know, speak about something, which now, like I said, there's times that Chappelle, I think he knows it. He's at a different time and space of his life. When he was younger, he was more animated. Now he's not. Now he's more thoughtful. He's become an orator. He stands up there and talks and takes a pause and thinks about something and so forth. But he's so interesting that's what we gravitate to. I'm gonna be honest with you. I can listen to him talk all night long in the way he talks, opposed to a comic up there flipping and jumping and talking about shit. Like, okay, I saw you. You were funny, but what was you talking about? Where at least Chappelle will give me some comedy in between. It may not be a bang, 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 bang show, every joke, but sometimes it's like he's in a different stage of his life. He's been through more. And he's more at the point where he's like, you know what? I'm going to tell y'all something that might not be all funny, but it may make you think. And I can respect that. And, you know, you got to get to like that. He's not going to be the young Chappelle of his first 2 or 3 specials. That ain't happening. You can see the energy is different. So enjoy what you got from him. And he's needed in comedy.
Yeah, Monica, I want to bring that same question to you as well. You know, what do you think? Do you think the release of so much material from Dave is hurting his brand, or do you think he's just feeding that appetite of people that may have been, you know, yearning for the time that he wasn't around?
I think, you know, I was blessed to watch him recently in New York City. I'm not going to say where, because I know he bounces around and doesn't want that information out. It was a small gathering, very exclusive. And for the first time, because I normally don't stay and watch him because there's always other comics that are crowding around. It was just me and one other comic. And I watched him and I watched him for 2.5 hours, which, you know, I don't have that kind of span. And I kept saying to myself, what most people say is like, it becomes redundant after a point, right? And I'm watching with that kind of attitude, like, am I gonna get bored with this? And I never did. He's somebody that has an opportunity because of the status that he has and the platform that he has that a lot of us don't have, to just go up in front of an audience, you know, and talk. Like when he did, I was opened up for Donnell when he taped his Netflix special, and Chappelle was producing those, and it was Chappelle Presents. Chappelle went on after each night and for like an hour or so rocked, and just stuff coming off his head. He's somebody who reads and thinks. I mean, that's who he is. We are blessed to have access to that. Do I think it's hurting his brand? Not as long as people are going and watching it. No, I don't think he really cares. He's a powerhouse. But at the same time, I think it's something that I caution myself on, and not to be long-winded because I read the fucking comments. What's she talking about? She's going around in circles. So let me go directly to it.
Right.
One of the things I think he's turning off, which I appreciate, is he's turning off the comments telling him when it's time for him not to respond, when it's over for him to keep making a point, and he just keeps doubling and tripling down, and he has an audience that's there for it. Sometimes you got to make your point and you got to move on, or you got to turn the noise off. You can't be paying attention to what people say, because comedy is subjective. That means everybody has an opinion about it. Everybody got their top 5, they got their top 10, they got the GOAT. They got who they think it is. It's never going to be the same person. But for the most part, society has collectively agreed that a large majority of people agree that Dave Chappelle is the GOAT.
Absolutely. Now, I want to bring you in, D Green, to get you to comment on that as well. You know, what are your thoughts? You know, all the material that we're seeing, do you think it's hurting his brand, or do you think at this point it's feeding the people that have an appetite for it?
I think it's really just feeding the people. I don't think anything, you know, like Pierre told me one time, you know, we had a conversation, you know, even bad publicity is good publicity, you know what I'm saying? So I think what's happening right now with Dave is he understands he has the ear of the public. He understands that, and we understand that as comics. So I believe that what he's doing is he could turn it, it's like in track or in sports, you could turn it on, you could turn it off. I know he could turn it on at any time to do material. But I really believe right now that Dave is like, I want to make sure that America knows you're not going to silence us as comedians. So he's going to talk about everything and anything, and we're going to listen. I don't think it's hurting his brand by any means, because the thing that really helps Dave is, look what happened with Cat Williams. Cat did another special. It wasn't as strong, right? People felt it wasn't strong. They had issues with it. So what Dave is doing now, he's not putting it out as specials. They're putting it out as specials. He's just talking and, hey, you put it out, you put it out. That's on you guys. So it's not hurting him. And the fact that we know he can turn it on and off at any time. But I just think it's very important of what he's doing, because I think when I watched the closer the other night for the first time, I saw something. And I really think Dave was very disappointed in America and the public of what happened with that transgender person. And I think he was like, you know what? I'm going to give it to y'all. And that's what he's been doing. He's been giving it to him. And it ain't nothing they can do about it right now.
Right. Now, let me ask you this, Danny, because I think you mentioned something earlier about, you know, just how Netflix is putting out a lot of things. I want to shift it just a little bit and talk about comedy as a whole. You know, we're seeing different specials outside of Dave Chappelle being released, and a lot of people feel like they're just popping them out like popcorn. Do you think that's helping or hurting comedy when it comes to specials, being that, you know, people probably aren't taking as much time to really put into specials?
It's hurting the game. It's hurting it bad, I believe, because one, I believe a lot of the people that are getting special is political. You know, when we was coming up in the 90s, you know, most people that was doing the special, when you got a special, you got a TV show. You know, your special was connected to something. You either came off a film or you grade get a television show. And now everyone's getting, and some of these people that are getting, I'm like, you know, who's this dude? You know what I mean? And it's like, it's so bland. The material is so bland because a lot of these people that they're giving special to are people that have never really lived or experienced. So what we're doing is we're feeding, to me, agenda or what's the word I'm looking for? A particular subject matter that we want people to follow instead of having comics, you know, and I'm not saying, but Pierre and other people that I've known for years, myself included, that have material and have lived a life. So I think it's hurting the game. And I think right now Netflix, I mean, they understand though, you know, business-wise, people are going to watch it. You know what I'm saying? It just depends on who you have. But I really think right now it's hurting the game. But I think it's also going to help because people are going to eventually, one thing about people, eventually they're going to want to hear substance and they want to hear the truth. And they're going to start weeding out these comics that are really not deserving of a special.
Absolutely. Now, and I think you made some great points there. Pierre, I want to bring you in on that question as well. You know, what are your thoughts? Do you think Netflix is helping or hurting comedy when it comes to specials, being that we're seeing so many come out at this point?
I don't know if it's an age thing, and you know, because a lot of these comics are so much younger. I don't know if it's that. I never, you know, I like young comedians. I like comedy. I don't care what age it comes to. For me personally, maybe I don't understand some of this younger comedy, but yes, I've watched the whole Netflix as a joke, the whole thing and shit. There's a lot of stuff that I consider below quality. You know, let's go with garbage and shit. I was like, what the? And I know jokes, and I know, and I'm down for the laughter. I want to enjoy myself. I don't want to waste an hour and an hour and a half and watch a whole bunch of comedians that aren't funny. There's one thing I notice about these comedians. There's no star quality. There's none of these new people have star quality. They're up there talking, but the star quality is not. That's why they got to repeat the people. That's why I got to give Mike Epps 10 special, Cat Williams 10 special, Dave Chappelle 10 special, because they don't. There's no one else in there. There's no one else to bring up and say, this is the next star. Trust me, none of them comics you see now in 5 years will be a star, will be a big star. None of them. And Netflix is maybe run by younger kids, maybe guys 20, you know, in their 20s or 30s who don't know solid material. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe they don't care. Maybe it's a new millennial situation where they're like, hey, this guy's kind of hip, he's kind of cool. Or she's kind of hip, she's kind of cool. Damn the material, they just hip and cool. Let's put them on. They got a lot of followers. Let's put them on. But star quality, people have really good material, as myself, as you will see in my Half-Truth special, star quality material you don't see no more. You don't see no movers or shakers. Move and shake me. Don't just tell me some bullshit. Move and shake. Maybe say, oh, damn, you got a point there. It's just people, I've seen some comics talk about stuff that is so minute and so plain. You know, now I'm noticing, to me, more comedians aren't doing jokes. They're telling you funny scenarios. There's no punchline. Well, man, you've been walking, you fall, and you trip and shit. People look at you like, damn, I fell and I tripped. Where's the punchline? That you fell and you tripped? I mean, you're telling a funny scenario. You're not telling funny jokes. There's no punchline. There's no meaning to these jokes. And, you know, so yeah, I think Netflix is hurting by putting those kind of comics out there instead of some really good quality comics who have material, who have solid material that goes across the board.
Yeah, Monica, let me bring you in on this conversation. You know, what are your thoughts? Do you think Netflix is helping or hurting? I know you've worked with Netflix closely. So, you know, just wanted to get your thoughts. Do you think it's helping or hurting comedy when it comes to the release of so many specials?
Well, since I'm an Illuminati demon that is running after the white man's corn, according to the comments.
Right.
I do have a half hour on Netflix, and it was under the Degenerates. It was difficult to move forward and get my own because there is a play that happens there in terms of popularity. We have to, I mean, this is a whole other conversation. We have to talk about what we consume and the boundaries that we have as Black people who consume artistry. So when we complain about certain Black comics being on it, you know, that's what Black people are considered. Like we keep saying we're not a monolith, and then we act like a monolith when we consume content, right? So you're gonna only see a certain amount of Black people. And then some of the Black people that I think that do have specials that are very funny, some other Black people ain't gonna watch them because they think they too white or whitewashed. They're not talking about something that they understand. So that's a whole other conversation. Are people getting specials that they don't deserve? Absolutely. But there is some good content there. And I think that we have to understand, again, comedy is subjective. So my opinion about who I think is funny in my top 10 and who I'm gonna watch is different than people. People are watching these people. There's only probably about, out of the 100% of the comedians that get specials, there's probably only 20% of those comedians that don't have some type of following that is going to go to Netflix and watch it. They're not in the business of putting people on that are not going to get people to tune into Netflix and watch it. So we have to remember there's a business aspect about it. But I also agree with these young gentlemen who are here with me. They should have specials on Netflix. They should have, you know, followers that are like, what's going on? What's happening? This is the conversation we had with Monique. When it's like, you know, here you got a Black woman talking about she need millions of dollars. Then you got Black people talking about, well, she don't deserve it. So then you don't complain when you wonder where Black people are in our representation, when we have Black people who are star power. Monique is, even with my problems with her, you know what I'm saying? Monique is no different than some of these white women they put on that are not hilarious on Netflix. So why aren't we standing behind them? Thank God you got a Chappelle that's running special after special. You know how magnificent he got to be a black man, that they're going to keep pumping special after give him $60 million? That's an amazing feat. When we talk about we got to be in a business that's run by white people and they pallets.
Right.
You understand? I'm very controversial as a comic. I'm not ladylike for all the people in the comments. I don't like the way she talk. Yeah, I'm a real nigga. I'm doing comedy. You understand what I'm saying? I don't have time to be up here. I'm not here to entice you niggas for your dicks to get hard. I'm here doing commentary. I'm doing comedy. So when you talk about that, we also have this sort of thing where it's like, well, we don't want people to say this. But niggas is hard to please. And that's why you don't see a good representation of niggas on Netflix.
And I will say it is a pleasure, regardless of what the comments say. I think the diversity that we have here adds to it because you all bring different flavors and different information. I do appreciate this lineup for this conversation because there's a lot that I learned being that I'm not in the comedy game at all. I just get to be a part of it and just watch and witness and, speak in it. So I appreciate all of you for chiming in on this topic. Yamanika, the comments are the comments. Pierre talks to
the comments. The one thing they get right is that you are beautiful and you are talented. As long as they get right, we know these niggas' eyes work somewhere.
Oh man, what about me?
All right, Pierre. All right. Well,
Pierre, you're amazing too, Pierre.
Thank you. All right. I got your back, Yamanika. I got your back.
It's a big family. I do appreciate y'all for calling and chiming in on this topic, though. Before we head out, again, I want to thank our special guest, Dan and Green, for chiming in. Now, Pierre, what do you have coming up and how can people follow you?
Well, you can follow me at Comic Pierre. That's COMICPIERRE. Comic Pierre on all social media platforms. I have a show. If you're in the DC metropolitan area, tomorrow, Thursday, I will be at the City Winery in Washington, D.C. And this Sunday, I'll be at the Looney Bin in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I got some other stuff next week, but we'll get there. But shout out to my crew, Yamanika. That's my girl, y'all. I love my girl, Yamanika. All that reckless talking y'all do in the comments, I'm coming for your asses. It's my boo right there. That's my girl. So that's all I got to say.
First of all, Pierre, thank you so much, my love. You know how I feel about you. I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. Mr. Dannon, thank you so much for being here today. And you are a dynamic comedian, and we're so glad to be in your presence, as well as thank you to Symphony, who holds a show down every week. We're so blessed to have her. You can follow me on everything at Yamanika. I will be at the Just for Laughs Festival. I'll be doing the Nasty Show from the run of July 21st all the way to the 31st. So you can get tickets at justforlaughs.com. I will be in the Rio Casino in Las Vegas, Comedy Cellar, August 21st through the 28th. So you can get tickets for that as well. And this weekend, you can see me at the Comedy Cellar in New York City. Thank you to everybody who is in the comments, negative or positive. These are the things that we need to make the world go round. And I'm so glad that you guys have my name in your mouth, even if you call me Big Lady. Hey, lady.
And again, I do want to say thank you for Dan and Green for joining us today. It is a pleasure to have you on today's show. And of course, I want you to let our people know, what do you have coming up and how can people follow you?
Well, you can follow me on Instagram, Dan and Green 66. That's my name, Dan and Green 66, and also Facebook. I don't tweet because that'll get me in a lot of trouble. But I also have a new boxing documentary film coming out called The Executioners. We all had a chance about a true boxing story about a gym out of Philadelphia. And I also have a new film that I'm working on called Heartbreak Hotel. I'm a writer and producer as well. So just follow me, and I appreciate Comedy Hype having me.
Absolutely. And congratulations on everything.
Thank you.
Well, again, thank you all for calling and chiming in on this. And again, thank you to our special guests. We appreciate you for joining us today. But you heard from us. Now we want to hear from you in the comments below. What are your thoughts on Damon Wayans questioning whether Dave Chappelle is putting out specials or speeches? For Comedy Hype News, I'm Symphony Thompson.
Put it in them comments.
Hey, I'm Tatiana LaJoy. For years, you've come to us to get the latest news in comedy and for your favorite comedians. Now you can come to us for even more news in the world of sports, music, and pop culture. We're bringing you some of our classic shows you love, like Unforgotten, the Comedy Hype News Show, and more one-on-one interviews. We're more than just laughs. We're the culture, the leader in truth. And well, your streamer just got a little more blacker. Welcome to Hype Plus.